Welcome to Indiana Sports Beat Radio, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Know your role and shut your mouth, you jabroni!
Fires upfield into the end zone. It is caught. Jelani Woods, touchdown! INDY!
Yes!
43-point night for Tyrese Halliburton.
How do you like that, partner?
Renew now, drives in low, throws up a shot. It doesn't go. Tipped up and in by Anthony Leal. Indiana takes the lead.
Pretty simple. I win. Google me.
Now, here's your host, Jim Coyle.
Hello, everybody. Welcome aboard. July 4th week. We're almost there. Today, July 2nd. Appreciate you being with us here on the program. Or is this today Wednesday already? I can't even remember.
It's Wednesday.
Yeah, it's Wednesday. That makes it July 3rd. Tomorrow's July 4th. Hey, get your sparklers, snakes and sparklers out. Snakes and sparklers. You got to have the good stuff. John, do you have the good stuff? Snakes and sparklers?
Yeah, I recently heard that clip again the other day, the full version of that. And the dude who I can't think of, I think that's Joe Dirt, right?
Well, that's the movie, yes.
Yeah.
Good job, John. I'm proud of you.
But
I'm
that's
so proud of you.
The different fireworks he named. It's one of the most creative lines I've ever heard.
Oh my God. I don't know how you remembered all that.
Oh, yeah.
Squeaming weemies, bungo splitters, with or without the whistle sticks. If you're not a Joe Dirt fan, you're missing out. Some classic comedy. But how's everybody doing? Hope you're doing having a good day, getting ready for the July 4th weekend. Of course, July 4th coming on a Thursday, so I don't know how that works out holiday-wise, but it's always a holiday here. So happy holidays. Hope you're doing well. Looking forward to another great program on the show today. Who all do we have on? Oh, yeah. Kyle Neddenriep from the Indy Star will join us. Rick Bozich, of course, and our friend Dylan Sinn from the Fort Wayne Journal-Gazette as well. It's going to be a warm one out there. The great weather that we had has passed us. Although yesterday evening, once sun went down, the humidity was not too bad. But hey, you can't complain much, really, to be honest with you. It's summer. It's supposed to be hot, right? So we've just had some great weather and tried to enjoy it. But hope you get out and grill some weenies or something this weekend. John, what are your 4th of July plans?
It's weird with 4th of July being on a Thursday. I don't really have any specific weekend plans that revolve around the holiday, but, sometimes we go over to some neighbors' houses. We have some friends down the street, might grill out, that kind of stuff. It's always a good time.
And what would you grill out?
Give me all the stuff. Give me the burgers. Give me the weenies. Give me the brats. Brats are probably my absolute favorite thing to have on the grill. So that'd be my food of choice.
Cannot go wrong with a good brat, man. I agree with you there, especially jazz it up a little bit. Looking forward to that. The men of Mackey, Purdue's TBT team, announced their new head coach and assistant coach yesterday, I saw, and kind of a familiar name. We have Mike DeCourcy on with us each week from the Big Ten Network. Well, Raphael Davis, also on the Big Ten Network, will be coaching the men of Mackey, former Purdue player. So they've got that going for them, and they announced an assistant as well. So I think there's going to be some this is going to be serious, man. They're going to take this stuff seriously. As far as these teams trying to win, for one thing, it's $1 million winner-take-all prize in the TBT. So that's reason enough as it is. You don't need any more reason than that. Then, of course, you're going to have some old-fashioned rivalry going on. The fact that that Fail Harder team is owned by Kyle Guy makes it a quasi-local team on top of that. So I didn't realize that until Kyle was on the program with us earlier in the week, which is cool. He should have named it Kyle Guy's Flybys or something. Give us a hint. But just cool to see all that. And the fact that when we were talking with Kyle, that he has had conversations with them moving the TBT championship to Indy, which is where it should be. Of course, biased here, but Philadelphia, come on, man. Give me a break. What's Philly? What's Philly got basketball-wise? Nada. They got nada. But lots of logos, new logos going up on uniforms all over the place as teams are making the switch. Washington, Oregon, USC, UCLA, taking off those Pac-12 patches and on with the Big 12 or Big 10 patches. The same over in the SEC as Tennessee and Oklahoma remove the Big 12 and insert the SEC logos. And you want to talk about some numbers? I got some numbers for you. Of the top 50 highest grossing revenue programs in all of college athletics, 31 of those top 50 belong to either the Big 10 or the SEC. And the SEC is a little bit ahead because, first of all, this is football driven, don't forget. But USC and Northwestern are not included in this because they're private schools, so they did not, those numbers are not available. The same with Vanderbilt in the SEC, but that takes it down to 16 teams. Of the 16 teams last year, or that will be in the Big Ten this year, we're using the numbers from last year, and 15 that will be in the SEC. For the SEC, $2.96 billion in gross revenue from their athletic programs. And for the Big Ten, it is $2.6 billion. That averages out to be about $166 million per team in the Big Ten. Did I make the 197 average? Almost $200 million each SEC program. I mean, that's crazy in total revenue. Think about that. Think about that. That's a lot of money. Now, I know there's a lot of expenditures, but got to be some profit there. The SEC not only has 6 out of the top 10, 7 out of the top 12 teams are in the SEC. The Big Ten has 4 in the top 10 and 5 in the top 11. Indiana, surprisingly, came in at like number 37 or something, around 100 and they had 144 million. They were number 27. 144 million. Purdue was several spots below at number 41 with 124 million. They're behind Rutgers even, which is, I guess, not really surprising. But UCLA, they are lagging, man. They were number 49 out of this group. No, next to last at just 105 million. So when you hear us talking about how they're not as UCLA football, and how I think that's a winnable game, whatnot. UCLA is not a financial juggernaut. I mean, just look at what did I just say they brought in 104 million. 105. I'm sorry, it's 105. You compare that to, say, number 1 Ohio State. They're at $280 million, more than double and a half. Michigan at 229. They're at number 4, but big difference. Big difference at the top, but just checking those numbers. How's everybody else doing? Great to see you on the Andy Moore Honda hotline. Don't forget Indiana Sports Beat Radio, powered by Andy Moore Honda. Get more to your door with the best in new and used vehicles at AndyMooreHonda.com. Also, the Autograph app. Autograph, where real fans get unreal rewards. the first place to combine all of your content, and you can get everything you need, and where you can turn your passion into reality. Just reach out to the Autograph app. You can go to your Google Play or Apple App Store and download that. Use ISB Media as your code. Autograph is where real fans get unreal rewards. Johnny boy, I'd like to have a chunk of that money that these teams are making. And then we've got more guys suing the NCAA. 16 more players are suing, including Kansas players from the 2008 national championship team, players from UConn, Arizona, and this adds to the 10 from the North Carolina State 83 championship team, also suing for the same thing, suing the NCAA for name, image, likeness purposes of them using video clips. And I'm like, okay, at what point does this say, sorry, that was news? I don't know that I see a case there. Everybody has their hand out now.
I think it's just one of those things where people realize that the NCAA can't get out of their own way. And so they're just taking advantage of a potential chance to, you know what? I was a part of this group that got left out. Why not play my hand in there somewhere and see if I can get in on some of this? So that'd be my assumption on why a lot of these players who really more than likely don't need this money, because many of them had great pro careers, like Mario Chalmers, who was on that Kansas national team or national championship team. He shouldn't need that extra NIL money. But again, some people can't get enough of all that stuff, and they just want to take advantage of the NCAA, which, I don't blame them. So kudos to them for trying out, getting in on some of the action.
I don't know about kudos, man. I'm like, come on.
Again, I say kudos because, everyone's taking their shot at the NCAA while they got a chance.
I get that. And not that I'm taking up for the NCAA.
Yeah.
But I'm also at the same time saying, dude, come on. Really? Give me a break. It's starting to become disingenuous.
Yeah, fair.
There's no one that's going to, come down harder on the NCAA than I am. I'm going to say it how it is or how I feel or whatever. But I'm like, at some point, it's like, dude, give me a freaking break here. Every single person has got their hand out for something. And, there were people back decades ago that didn't have a lot of other things that we have now. Things change. Can't help change. Life changes. So we've got lots coming up on the program today. Dylan Sinn going to join us from the Fort Wayne Journal-Gazette, as well as Kyle Neddenriep. We'll talk more about Trent Sisley and his decision to take his skills to Montverde Academy, which is a wise move for him. I had some people respond on there say, well, I'd like to see it. I think it's terrible. I'd like to have seen if he could carry his team to a state title. And I'm like, that's part of the reason why he's leaving. He was a one-man show. And then you have people say, well, he's not a one-man show. Bull crap. Yes, they were. If you don't think so, then I don't think that you're as knowledgeable about the game. He does not have the talent he needs to allow him to work on his game. Having to play out of position and then Brian says that according that he's seen that he's not going to reopen his recruiting. I've already said that I do not believe that this will have any bearing on his recruiting. This is not about his recruiting. This is not about him trying to get more. It's about him trying to get better, period. And when we talk to Todd Leary on Monday, we're going to talk about this, and I'm going to let you hear it from the horse's mouth. Let you hear it from someone who knows from a competitive standpoint, who's actually worked with Trent as well. So, but more coming up. Dylan Sinn's going to join us here on the program. Up next, brought to you by the Autograph app and Andy Moore Honda. We're back with more right after this.
We'll be right back for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
In the market for
Good morning, Dylan.
Good morning, gentlemen.
people. Hey, brother, how are you?
Good. How are you?
Good. People, I'm asking you if you would prefer a 9 a.m. start time or 8:34 for those of you that are on here currently. And for those of you that might be listening later, chime in. I'm curious. It used to be 9, then it got switched to 8:30 because we had to, but we can switch back to 9. I think that works better for a lot of guests, but I'm just curious as to what you all think. How's it going, my friend?
I'm good. How's everything there?
Good. I'm gonna go grab a quick coffee. What's new?
Oh, not a whole lot. I'm leaving on my honeymoon on Saturday, so I won't be on next week.
Nice. Where are you heading out?
Scotland.
Scotland.
That's right.
Have some bangers and mash.
Oh gosh, yes. So I will be gone for the next 9 days after
Well,
Saturday.
enjoy yourself. on
Thank
your
you,
trip,
sir.
man.
Thank you. Oh. Oh.
Want some bloody bangers and mash.
Oh boy. Oh. Excuse me.
It's one of those mornings.
Oh yeah.
I thought it was supposed to rain today. I thought it was supposed to rain today.
Yeah, it's dark out. That's for sure.
I think it's supposed to be in the afternoon, but I guess it could be different where you're at. So
Why did you pick Scotland?
So my wife went to a wedding there in 2019, and she's always wanted to go back. And then I lived in England for a year when I was a kid. I never went to Scotland, so I wanted to go.
You lived in England when you were a kid?
Yeah, for a year.
Wow.
Yeah. I was
all right,
just
here we
watching.
go, guys. 10 seconds.
Cows, Chop Shock, Market and Table, a part of the Wild Food Group, is your butcher, baker, and fish house, no matter where you live.
This segment is brought to you by Remax Advanced Realty, Indie Home Pros team by Cheryl Sizemore. Welcome back to Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio on this Wednesday. Thank you so much for being with us. Brought to you by Cheryl Sizemore and Remax Realty. For those in the market for a home in the Indianapolis area, you need Cheryl Sizemore, and her 2 decades of experience could be the difference between getting the home you want or not. Reach out to her, Cheryl, at IndyHomePros.com. Dylan Sinn from the Fort Wayne Journal-Gazette. How are you, sir?
I'm good. Thank you for having me on, as always, Jim.
Always a pleasure, brother. Hot. How's Fort Wayne?
Fort Wayne is good. Yes, it is. It has been much nicer this week. We are, as always, the Tin Caps are in town for 4th of July, starting tomorrow, obviously. That's always the biggest game of the year here in Fort Wayne. They have somewhere around 9,000 fans that show up. So very, very excited.
Tannis says the Ireland and Scotland's going to pull my Irish card and make me change my last name. Why would you do that, man? James Patrick Coyle. I'm full all in, baby. Full all in. You bloody squats. Dylan, we were kidding. Dylan heading to Scotland for his honeymoon coming up. So that should be fun, man.
That's right. I'm looking forward to it. We leave on Saturday. So very, very excited for that.
That's what, like a 7-8 hour flight?
Yeah, so we're going from Fort Wayne to Atlanta, and then Atlanta to Edinburgh. So it's about, I think, 5 hours from Atlanta.
That's it.
Yeah.
Wow.
And then it's about 10 hours total because it's a 5-hour time difference.
You got that going for you.
Oh yeah,
which is nice.
Yeah.
Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese headline the 12-player team WNBA All-Stars that will face the U.S. women's national team in Phoenix July 20th. I mentioned that because, boy, that would be an opportunity for Caitlin Clark to say, here's what you missed out on. But that's going to be interesting because of these rookies. I think that these vets are going to try to make sure that they don't show that they should have been on that team.
Yeah, I mean it's still one of the main controversies from this kind of Olympic cycle for the women's team. I still think that it's probably best for Caitlin Clark overall that she's not on that team, simply because she's played so much basketball over the last year. She went straight from leading, because not only does the WNBA schedule make it hard for rookies in general because the draft is immediately after the season, and then you go right into the WNBA season right after the draft. But Caitlin Clark specifically because she made the national championship game. So she played in April for Iowa. She was drafted later that month, and then she went straight into training camp within like 2 weeks. And she's been playing ever since. It's probably best for her to be able to just take a break, especially if the Fever are now on the edge of playoff contention. You want to be rested and ready for kind of that final stretch of the season. So, yeah, I mean, I'm sure she would have liked to have been on the team. I think she's kind of made it, taken the right tack with it, which is like, I'll be there next time, basically. Like, she's 22. There's every possibility she'll be on the team the next time. And she can kind of just take a break from basketball, which I think she probably needs. So yeah, she can go out there and play well against some of the Olympians and show what she could have done, but also just relax, take a break, and she'll be better for it. Probably not only this season, but going forward as well.
I agree with everything you just said. How about my man Eli De La Cruz of the Cincinnati Reds, still doing Eli De La Cruz things? Yesterday, he has his first game ever in Yankee Stadium, and what does he do? He goes Babe Ruth and hits a 2-run home run that put the Reds up 5-0 at the time, but that would end up being the winning run as they win. They knock off the Yankees 5-4, but every time you turn around, this dude is doing something that's just crazy. It's like always right on cue.
Yeah, no, he's fantastic. He really is one of those guys that just makes baseball like really, really exciting. Because you never know exactly what's going to happen when he's up there. And obviously he has tremendous power, but some of the most exciting plays in all of baseball are when he hits one in the gap and you know he's going to try to go for a triple because he's so fast. And it's just really, really fun to see him kind of turn on the jets and round the bases that way. Same with when he's at shortstop and there's a fly ball to left or to center and he's chasing after it. It's those plays that make the sport really exciting when a guy who has that much speed is running after something full speed. And it's like, all right, here's an athlete. Let's see him go get it. It's a lot of fun. And he is a really fun player. And I think crucially for him, he enjoys being a really fun player. He takes a lot of joy in the game. And I think that makes it just a joy to watch. And so, yeah, Ellie De La Cruz is one of the most exciting players in baseball right now, even though I know there's been some just basically from the rest of the league. It's like, well, he's not actually hitting that well, blah, blah, blah. But when he does, it's just super exciting. And he's so valuable defensively and on the bases that he's still an incredibly valuable player, even if he's just above average as a hitter, right?
Yeah, it's just fun stuff to watch. And then shocking breaking news, LeBron James signs an extension with the LA Lakers. Oh, I'm so shocked that happened. $52 million a year for 2 years, $104 million for 2 years. I just don't know. How are they making money?
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing is the cap is rising pretty significantly coming up here. So 52 million is not even really like a super max contract. And basically what this is it's
yeah, but they got Anthony Davis. They've got all these other guys.
Oh yeah, they're right up against the tack. I think they still have a little bit of room. Like that was the point of LeBron signing less than the max, was they have a little bit of room to bring in maybe a couple of veterans, I think is the idea. But because the cap is rising super significantly, and so like the max is going to be something like 70 million going forward here. And then obviously you can get above that with certain, if you've been on the team for a certain amount of time, et cetera, and so forth, kind of like Jason Tatum just signed. I think it was 60-ish million a year, somewhere in there, 63. But yeah, and so it's one of those things where basically it's a 2-year deal, quote unquote, but I think there's a player option for the second year, and so he basically has the option to become a free agent again next offseason. So it's one of those things where if he doesn't feel like, if he wants to play again the following season in 2025-26, and he doesn't feel like there's a path to contention, he can move on there. But he is at least returning for a 22nd season, which is kind of crazy to think about, just from the plain fact he's been playing basketball in the professional ranks for 22 years. That is unheard of. So that's an accomplishment in itself, quite frankly.
We've got to take a break. Dylan Sinn with us from the Fort Wayne Journal-Gazette. We've got more coming up. We'll talk some TBT. We'll talk college hoops, college football, plenty more when we come back. Brought to you by Cheryl Sizemore and Remax Realty right after this.
We'll be right back for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
If you're looking for...
You didn't need to break there. Remember, we were 10 minutes behind, but it's okay.
Boy, I see,
that's why I didn't pop in.
Dude, my brain is so used to times, and that's why I hate Monday. That's why I hate Monday. It throws me off, and once I'm off, it's like I'm off.
So this will be a much longer segment. Just keep that in mind.
That's okay. We got plenty to talk about.
Have you guys? Did you guys talk about Sisley yesterday?
Yeah, but we'll be talking about it today. I mean, it's an ongoing story. I mean, I had people respond on the comments, some that, oh, well, you know, I would like to have seen him stay and see if he can carry his teams to a state title. And I'm like, that's why he's leaving. He does. I mean, people don't get it. He does not have the kind of support around him. It does not allow him to play his position. He is forced to play center on a team and then get double and triple teamed, which does him no good. Playing another year of high school ball in that situation is completely useless to him. Useless.
Yeah. He averaged 25 points a game last season. They didn't even win a sectional.
No. And
25 points, 11 rebounds.
Yes, and he's going to leave as his school's all-time leading scorer and rebounder after 3 freaking seasons.
Yeah.
Who does that?
Oh boy, yeah, that's he did what he came to do. I think he was the team's best player for 3 seasons. He did what he could, and
I mean, you look at Jeffersonville. I've seen at least 3 different players pop up that have received offers to play in college. There is not one player on Heritage Hills, not named Trent Sisley, that is going to get an offer to play. It makes a difference, people. I mean, yes, it sucks. I agree that sucks. I would love to see him stay and be able to be eligible for Mr. Basketball, to be an Indiana All-Star, because that's a lifelong thing. I'm glad he got to go through that this year of sorts. I still think it stinks that if you're a true Indiana resident, which he is, even though he'll be playing out of Florida, I still think he should be an Indiana All-Star.
All right, here we go, guys. 10 seconds.
For 36 months on a 2023 Honda Ridgeline. Go to AndyMooreHonda.com and get more to your door.
This segment is brought to you by Freethink Apparel. Welcome back to Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio on this Wednesday. Thank you so much for being with us. Brought to you by Free Think Apparel and Promotions, whether it's 24 T-shirts for the upcoming family reunion or 200 for the recreational baseball, softball league. Free Think Apparel meets your printing needs. Their team of industry experts work with you to design a professional-looking sales-generating web store for your custom designed apparel and promotional merchandise. Whether it's a large corporation, small business, high school sports team, or a national account, Free Think Apparel delivers no matter where you are. Visit freethinkapparel.com today and get printing. Dylan Sinn from the Fort Wayne Journal-Gazette with me. I don't know who is going to be what in the Big Ten in basketball this year, Dylan, because, well, Illinois, for one thing, Brad Underwood usually reloads and is able to come around. He just lost Jeremiah Fears, but then he adds another player. Let's see. They got Will Riley, but that's not who I was talking about. But Illinois will be good. Purdue is going to be solid. I do not see them as I don't see Purdue as a Big Ten champion this year. I just don't think that they have enough. Ohio State's going to be tough. Michigan State's going to be tough. Maryland probably is going to be tough.
I think Michigan's going to be good. I think that Dusty May did a lot in his first offseason there.
Don't sleep on Dusty, without question. But if you look at it, and this is going to sound homerish, and I hate that, I don't know who has more talent than Indiana does right now.
I think it's the combination of talent and age, right? Indiana is an old team. They are a team that has experience and they have talent on top of that, right? I mean, it's talent, it's experience, and it's continuity, because despite all of the roster turnover this offseason, they bring back 5 players who started games last year, between Mbako, Renew, Cupps, Galloway, and Leal. All those guys started games last season. So, for as much turnover as Indiana had last year, there's continuity as well. And so I think you add on the pieces they brought in this offseason with the Kanan Carlisle and the Umar Ballo and the Miles Rice, and then you bring in a Luke Goody as well. And again, I'm going to say this again. I've said this to a couple people, but I do think that I like Langdon Hatton a lot. If you watch his film, that dude can play. And so I think that people kind of thought he was a little bit of a throw-in at the end as a guy just to be a backup 5. And that probably will be his role, but I wouldn't be surprised if he gets some pretty significant minutes at some point along the way, just because I think he has a really interesting skill set. But I do think that it's the combination of experience and talent that Indiana has that I think right now puts them right in the mix at the top there. I do think Illinois is going to be very good. As you said, I do think Michigan's going to be good. I think Purdue will be there. I don't know if Purdue has the experience. They have a lot of experience on that team, but they have one senior, I think. Obviously, Braden Smith and Fletcher Loyer have already started for 2 years, so that's its own thing. But it's one of those things where I just don't know if they have the high-level experience necessary to really compete at that top level, because I think they have the talent. And maybe if Miles Colvin or Camden Heidi breaks out and becomes a star immediately, then we're talking about something different. And I think it's possible for either one of them because they were both so good in short spurts last year. But I think you're asking a lot of that to just be for them to be that good immediately. So I think that they're probably maybe 3rd or 4th in the league. I think would be just fine for them. And I think you're looking at another season like that. But I do think it's probably Illinois and Indiana at the top of the league. Again, I think Purdue could get there, but I think it's probably Illinois and Indiana at the top of the league.
Yeah, and it's going to be interesting. I'm interested to see what Indiana is able to do. I don't think that there's any way possible that there's a team deeper than Indiana because of all that they have added. Then you have to wonder, all right, how are they going to disperse all of those minutes? Because you only have 200 total minutes in a game.
Yeah.
I think one of the things it's going to offer the opportunity for guys like Vallow and Renew to not have to play over 30 minutes a game, which should give them not only rest, but hopefully Renew has a penchant for being in foul trouble. If he can get
by the way, Vallow has struggled with that a little bit too. So
and you don't really have a replacement down low.
Yeah.
For those guys. I mean, Hatton, you mentioned about, he's the backup big, but he's not really a post player. He's more of an athletic big, I guess. I don't know how to describe it.
Yeah, he's a stretch five essentially, and he can go down there and rebound. I don't know. His back to the basket game isn't super deep, I don't think. But he's a guy who can go in there and play the five if you need him to. I think Mackenzie Mbako can play the four. Obviously, Luke Goody can play the four. I think what is so interesting about this Indiana team, and I think this is why we're going to see we're going to see Mike Woodson's coaching chops really come out this year, is because Indiana can play so many different ways with so many different lineup combinations. Because there's just 12 guys on this team who have all played a high level who have either played well at a lower level of college basketball, or who have experience at a high level of college basketball, and or are a 5-star recruit in Bryson Tucker. So basically, you have all 12 of these guys that have a genuine path to minutes. And obviously, you're not going to play 12 guys every night. It just doesn't. That's not what happens in basketball. So some people are going to be left out, and I think the process of finding out who that is going to be fascinating. And I don't think we actually really know the answer yet. I don't know what IU is going to try to lean on. I don't know what lineups they're going to try to play. I think, again, that is why Mike Woodson did the work this offseason to give himself a chance to do the work during the season, right? Like this is a basketball coach's dream where you can play 15 different ways and 15 different lineup combinations. You just got to figure out which one works best. And that is what he's going to have to do this offseason and then going into the season, because I don't think this team is going to be perfect right away. I think people need to kind of set expectations for early in the season, because so many new faces and so many different styles of play that are possible. It's going to take a minute to figure out exactly what works best. And so I think going into the Big Ten season, I think, is when you're going to want to see this team really gel and come together. And so November, there are going to be growing pains. However, I think that those are good things, because it's giving Indiana a chance to see what they have, see what works, and see which lineup combinations are the best. And so I think it's going to be fascinating to see that play out.
Yeah, one thing that we can say that we have not been able to say for a few years for Indiana is they are set at guard. They have two guys that, if they start together, are going to be more than solid. And that does not include guys that were starters that will more than likely be coming off of the bench, which is a huge boost if you can do that, because I think that they picked up speed. That gives them just some things they didn't have. And this is not a knock on Trey Galloway or anybody else, but Kanan Carlisle and Miles Rice are just more athletic. And whether it's the ability to have burst to get to the rim quickly or kick it, whatever, and then you've got to have the guys to knock those shots down. And first you look at Mackenzie Mbako. He's got to improve his 3-point shooting a little bit, but I expect that he will. He'll take that jump in his second year, because he is no doubt a very, very pure type shooter. The system has to also work. How is Mike Woodson going to run this offense? If you're running it through the middle, you're not setting it up for the perimeter type play. I think that the post should be a secondary part of your offense, because offensive rebounding, put it in. You've got Ballo, you've got Renew. I mean, that should not be the centerpiece of the offense, and we'll see if it is or not.
Yeah, I don't think it will be, quite frankly. I do think that obviously Malik Renew's back to the basket game is very, very good. I said this last year. It is a joy to watch him work. when he gets the ball with the back to the basket. His footwork is just so good. But I don't think that is where Indiana is going to really make its mark for the most part. I do think there will be some of that. It can be kind of a bailout toward the end of a shot clock where it's like, well, we haven't gotten a shot on the perimeter. Let's go feed it to Malik and he'll get us something. But Oumar Ballo is not a back to the basket guy particularly. He can do that, but he's more of a pick and roll, big time athlete who can go get rebounds and putbacks around the rim. So I think that that's going to be a significant part of Indiana's offense is the pick and roll. Obviously, it was last year too with Khalil Ware. But I think that it's going to be much more guard oriented this year. They're going to play pretty differently. And so, yeah, it's going to be, okay, you have the pick and roll with Ballo at the top of the key. Miles Rice or Kaden Carlisle comes around the screen and Ballo is covered. Okay, who's open in the weak side corner, right? Is it Mackenzie Mbako? Because I think he could knock down that shot. Is it the other one of Miles Rice or Kaden Carlisle, whoever doesn't have the ball? I think they could knock down that shot. Trey Galloway, I think, could too. I'm on record, and I remember you wrote it down, Jim. I think Trey Galloway is going to shoot 35% from three this year. I don't think he's going to shoot 26% again. I just don't fundamentally believe that. So it's going to be a question of when they sag off of Ballo and Renew, who is going to take those shots, who is going to make those shots. I think Anthony Leal is going to find a space on this team by being a guy who can make those shots, because I said it last year. I believe Anthony Leal is a genuinely extremely valuable player. He is very, very heady in big moments, and he shot 47% from three last year. I know that it's small sample size, but he is a very good shooter, and I think he's going to find minutes on this team simply by virtue of being that guy who can hang out in the corner and make those shots. Same with Luke Goody. So yeah, I'm fascinated by that.
We saw Trey Galloway have a higher shooter percentage on a smaller sample size, but when he was forced to increase that, it did not go well. I think you're going to see a lot less shot production from him because that's not his game. He's not a good 3-point shooter, and that's not going to be required of him. So I'm going to disagree with you on that, but I'm not. His percentage might go up, but his sample size is going to come back down. And I'm also going to disagree that I don't think that Anthony Leal is going to find the time that people expect, because there's only 200 minutes. And I've run it. I've sat down with pen and paper, and I'm like going, okay, if Renew and Ballo play 25 minutes, just 25 minutes, and Mackenzie Mbako plays 28, maybe 30. That's a guy that you're going on the floor 30 minutes. You're getting up towards, and then either Carlisle or Rice, one of those guys are going to play a lot of minutes. So you're getting up to half of your available minutes taken by probably 4 players. And that doesn't include one of your starters and the entire rest of your bench. Yeah. So that's why I'm disagreeing somewhat, because there's only so many. Luke Goody, how many minutes is he going to be able to find? There's guys like Ja'Kai Newton who is a big question mark, and we just don't know.
Who I think will be a good player, by the way. You heard it here first. Ja'Kai, so here's the thing, and I got a little bit of pushback on this when I said it on Twitter. I don't see, and he could be so good that he proves me wrong. I don't see the minutes for Bryson Tucker on this team. I just don't. And I'm not saying he's not a good player, because I think he is. I think if he stays in college for 2 years and he sticks around in Indiana in 25, 26, he'll be a very, very important player. But I just don't see the minutes for him on this team. I don't know what he gives you that you can't get from someone who's older and more experienced.
He's going to have to beat out guys like Luke Goody, because Luke Goody is in that spot right there. And we know that he can knock down the 3-point shot.
Exactly. Like if you're talking who's the main backup for Mackenzie Mbako, I think that Luke Goody is more likely. I think that Anthony Leal might be more likely. Obviously, the third guard, whoever it is, Trey Galloway, maybe if Kaden Carlisle and Miles Rice start, Trey Galloway's minutes have to come from somewhere. He's going to probably play some 3. So I think Bryson Tucker will play. Obviously, he's a 5-star. I think his talent level is such that you're going to find him minutes somewhere. I think just people are expecting him to be a big piece of this team, and I just don't see where that's possible just because, which, by the way, is a good thing, which is a good thing for Indiana because that means that they don't have to throw a 5-star in the fire like they did with Mackenzie Mbako last year. Like that's the reason Mackenzie Mbako struggled so much at the beginning of last season is because it would have been much better for him to come off the bench to start his career, but Indiana didn't have the depth to do it. And this year they do. And so Bryson Tucker can come off the bench and learn the ropes and develop as the season goes on, and then maybe has some good games at the end of the season and really break out as a sophomore and be an NBA guy in 26, that kind of thing. And so I think that that's not the worst career path for him. It's just an interesting one considering that he is a 5-star recruit and he probably could have played immediately at a lot of places. So I wonder how Indiana was able to land him when he probably looked at the tea leaves and was like, well, I might not play as much unless he thinks that he is that guy and he is going to come in and take minutes from someone really, really good.
Yeah, I agree with Brian. I think that Anthony Leal is just going to find himself with not a lot of minutes, partly because of defensive reasons, but also offensive. He's a good shooter, but he's not great at finding his own shot yet. So we'll see what you want. But then you've got a guy like Gabe Cupps. He's a unique situation because here's a guy who was forced into action unexpectedly last year for a ton of minutes, but obviously needed to grow yet. Where is he going to be, and how does he fit into this picture?
Yeah, I actually don't know. It's him and Bryson Tucker are the guys that I worry might be left out in the cold a little bit, and I don't mean that neither of them can play because I think they can. Again, I just don't see the minutes for Gabe Cupps, quite frankly. I'm sure they'll find him some as the backup point guard or something like that because last year basically the backup point guard was Trey Galloway, and you don't want him playing those minutes. But the thing is that Miles Rice and Kanan Carlisle can both be your lead guard and were on their teams last year. And so, or at least at certain points. So I think they're probably both ahead of Cupps on the depth chart. And I guess a lot of it is going to come down to how much better does Gabe Cupps get this offseason? Does he get stronger? Does he get bigger? Does he get more physical? Because I think that that's what was missing from his game last year was just the physicality necessary. And that's why it would have been better for IU had he not been forced into those big minutes. Because again, he could have been brought along slowly and things like that. And he was thrown into the fire. And there were some moments where he struggled, but I think he did get better as the season went on. I think he got more confident offensively. And I'm on record saying this. I think he's going to be a very, very good player for Indiana at some point very soon. I just don't think it's this year. And so the question then becomes, where do you find minutes for him? Is it one of those things where he plays 10 to 15 minutes a game off the bench as the backup point guard or even a third guard just to give Rice and Carlisle a little bit of a blow? And is that okay with him, right? Because you don't want Gabe Cupps transferring, I don't think. And obviously that's just kind of the way basketball and college sports works now is anyone can transfer at any time for any reason, but you'd like to keep him around. And so you're focused on this season. You're doing what you can to win games this year, but you also want to keep your players as happy as possible. That's just kind of how things work. And so I think they'll find minutes for Gabe Cupps. I think he wants to be an Indiana Hoosier. But I just don't know where the significant role is going to be this year. I worry about him kind of getting lost in the shuffle a little bit this year.
Yeah, and I've seen a couple people, including who was it just on here, Jamie, that says could Cupps redshirt. I just don't see redshirting being a thing anymore. Number one, because of the transfer portal, but number two, Indiana doesn't have the luxury of depth. They're already one short of scholarship, so they're down to 12 guys. And even though that they have gone the opposite direction in depth at the guard position, with only 12 guys, you don't take another one off of the board. I don't think. And I don't think that in this day and age, a guy is going to take kindly to being redshirted.
No, I don't think. I understand where they're coming from in terms of whether he should redshirt. I do think that that's like, it's a question that should probably be asked, because I do think you could probably get away with having a guard rotation of Rice, Carlisle, Galloway, Leal. I think that would be fine. And Newton. I think that 5-sim is probably fine at guard, and you could redshirt Gabe Cupps if you wanted to. I don't, because then you're susceptible to an injury again, right? And you don't want to be susceptible to an injury. That was the point of putting together the team the way they did. I thought it was really interesting. I talked to Mike Woodson, but 2 or 3 weeks ago here in Fort Wayne. He came for an event, and one thing he said was that he is not worried about injuries this year. Like, he worried about injuries the last couple of years, and they haven't, right? Like, they were one injury away from taking a step back as a team. I don't think that's true this year, unless it's an injury to a very, very specific player like an Umar Ballo or a Malik Renew. But I do think that the depth is such this year that you don't have to worry about an injury, but then that kind of comes back into it if you redshirt someone. So I do think that Cupps will play. I think he'll get 10, 12 minutes a game. And the question is, can he maximize those 10 to 12 minutes? Can he run the show? Can he avoid turnovers? Can he show a little bit of offensive punch? Because I think that was something that we saw flashes of at the end of last season. He got to the rim a little bit. He had that little nice feathery mid-range jumper. I want to see more of that. I want to see that he is ready to take on a lead guard position in 25-26, which I think that he is. And then I want him to show it this year.
Yeah, definitely, especially with the depth that they're going to have at that position. This is going to be a sink or swim kind of year for him, I think. Either as long as you keep maturing and coming along, then it's actually a good sign for Indiana, because he will be a very important role going forward, whether that is the backup point guard, since Carlisle and Rice are both young. They have 3 years left of eligibility coming into this season, as does Gabe Cupps. So it's nice to know you're pretty set at the guard position for next year already, and you can go out and replace that. But to have those pieces in place makes you comfortable. And allows you to start doing things that maybe you were not able to do last year. And there were plenty of things Indiana could not do and did not do offensively last year, mainly because they just did not have the talent.
Yeah, I think that's a significant part of it too, is that there was, when Xavier Johnson went down, Gabe Cupps played well in spurts. He just wasn't quite ready for all of those minutes, right? I think Gabe Cupps would have been a very valuable backup guard last year. I think he would have done very well in that role, but he was forced into a role that he wasn't quite ready for, and we saw the growing pains of that. And I think that it stunk last year because it really took the ceiling of a team and lowered it. But I do think it's better for long term, because you saw what he can do. You saw that, and he saw it himself. You saw him get better as the season goes on. You saw him get more confident. And so, yeah, it was tough last year because so much was riding on the health of Xavier Johnson. And when he got hurt, so much of it became difficult. And I think that that's what you're going to see this year, is that there is just more margin for error than there was last season. I think that's the most important part of what Indiana did this offseason.
Absolutely. And Purdue, like I said, I'm not in no way knocking on Purdue. They are solid at guard. They're kind of opposite of Indiana. I know that Purdue fans are very confident in Trey Kaufman-Renn in the center, and I'm not saying he can't play in there, but we're talking about going from the 2-time player of the year, a freak generational player, and then you're going to put basically a stretch 4 in that position, is what Trey Kaufman is. He's not a 5. No. And while that might give Purdue more athletic ability than they've had in the past in that position, I don't think Trey Kaufman-Renn is not going to handle Umar Ballo. I go right there to that point immediately.
Yeah, I think that that's a good point to make. I think that people are going, people have gotten this image in their head of Purdue as being the team that plays back to the basket all the time, because Edey was there. I think it's going to be kind of a shock to the system that they're going to play such a different style of basketball this year. Obviously, Trey Kaufman-Renn is a back to the basket player himself. He He is a guy very much like Malik Renew, who is a little bit undersized for the 5, but just has a really deep bag of tricks in the post. And so offensively, they're going to be fine there, but they're just going to play so much more, basically 4 out, 1 in than they did the last couple of years. I'm fascinated by that. I think Cam Heide and Miles Colvin are going to probably be the 3 and the 4. That's so much athleticism on the wing that Purdue just didn't have the last couple of years. And so I think that they're going to play differently. They're going to shoot a ton of threes, as they always do, probably even more so this year. And I do think that there's going to be a lot of rim running with Trey Kaufman-Renn and Braden Smith running the pick and roll together. I think that's going to be a huge piece of the offense. Defensively, I do think there's question marks. I do think that's kind of where the questions come in. I think Colvin and Kaufman-Renn are specifically question marks on defense, and Fletcher Lawyer has always been a little bit of a question mark in that area. And so it's going to be, they're going to score a ton of points. It's a question of, can they stop teams well enough to win 25 games? I don't know the answer to that yet, so we're going to say it's going to be interesting.
We'll certainly find out. Dylan Sinn from the Fort Wayne Journal-Gazette won't be with us next week. He'll be off in Scotland having some bangers and mash for his honeymoon.
That's right.
Well with that, sir. And when you come back, we'll be talking about the TBT. We will be talking about the results of Indiana Elite at the 3 SSB championships in Rock Hill, South Carolina. That will have happened. So all kinds of things. And the Brickyard coming up in Indianapolis later this month. All kinds of and TBT. We'll be talking about TBT, which I think that is going to be an absolute blast at Hinkle Fieldhouse with Purdue and Indiana and Butler. And Kyle Guy owns Fail Harder, by the way. Did you know that?
I did not.
I didn't. He was on the show with us Monday, and he owns the team that opens with Butler. I think it's called Fail Harder, but he should have just called it he should have called it the Dizzies, the Dizzy Runs or something. But absolutely, have fun, brother. We appreciate you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Jim. Appreciate it. Have a good week.
You as well, brother. Hey, we've got lots more coming up, brought to you by the Rusty Gator down in Bedford, Indiana. If you're passing through in the area, it's where oceanic flavors meet Southern charm. Nestled in the heart of Bedford, their seafood restaurant is a haven for those who crave the freshest catches of the sea in a laid-back and inviting atmosphere. They have live music and concert series going on this week, John Boy. Do you have that handy, by the way, to put that up? Because I know they have got a lot of... They've got all these tribute acts coming, which is pretty daggone cool. You've got Bon Jovi, Taylor Swift, and I cannot say that name without Nikki Glazer, who was on the Tom Brady roast, called Jewel. What did you call her? Trailer Swift? Yes. It was a funny joke. But also, you got Thunderstruck. That's going to be fun. Gran Torino, No Fences, a Garth Brooks tribute, Billy Joe, Elton John tribute show. I actually I've seen both of those guys in concert. But Cody Eichert, again, he'll be back, and he was awesome the other night. So we've got lots more coming up here on Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Back with it right after this.
We'll be right back for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
In the market. People, I'm going to ask you again, since there's more have joined. Starting time, do you prefer 8:35 or 9 as the starting time for the show? Just trying to get a consensus here. Nobody's saying diddly do. Diddly poo. What did Jim Morris say? Diddly poo. Diddly poo. Why can't I get into this? Why is it not opening up?
I told Kyle we were ready for him, and he hasn't told me he wouldn't. Did he say he was going to be out of town this week by any chance? I don't remember him saying anything like that, but maybe he did.
I don't recall.
Oh, we'll see.
God dang it. Come on, man.
Let me see if he said, maybe he texted me potentially like a week or so ago, and I just missed it. No, he hasn't said anything about being off.
Oh, baloney.
All right, here we go.
There we go.
Of course, contact Amy Rhoda with Rebesco Real Estate for additional information. 812-583-0919 or go to mystonecrestliving.com. That's mystonecrestliving.com for more details. This segment is brought to you by Hoosier Hanks East. Welcome back to Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio here on this Wednesday. I hope you are having a good first part of your week, July 4th week. Kyle Neddenriep from the Indy Star joins us now. Kyle, how are you, sir?
Good. How are you?
Cannot complain. Don't forget, Indiana Sports Beat Radio brought to you by Hoosier Hanks East. I was over there last night, had some pizza, and it was delicious. Located right off College Mall Road in Bloomington. If you're in town or coming through for a game or whatnot, they have an array of incredible food. You can stop by there. Great place to watch a game right off of College Mall Road there. Kyle Neddenriep. Kyle, of course, the biggest story this week on the high school scene, Trent Sisley making the very, very difficult decision for him and his family to go play his senior season at Montverde Academy, which is without question the best move for him and his future. But it hurts the community. It hurts the team, his team. It hurts him. I know he didn't want to leave that. Their family is very, very entrenched in that community. His dad's a teacher there. And so I know that was not easy, but at the end of the day, as you know, this is in his best interest. I've said this numerous times. He was not allowed to play his position because of the situation, being forced to play center, which he's not a center, not going to be a center, getting double and triple teamed. It was not doing him any good. And another year of that was just going to be a wasted season, in my opinion.
Yeah. I mean, aren't we as guys sitting back and in our middle age supposed to just sit here and rip Trent Sisley up and down for making this selfish decision? I'm just kidding. And by the way, I just see all the I see all the comments online. It's like, man,
it's mind-boggling. I had someone tell me, he goes, well, I don't think it's right. I think he should have stayed and see if he could have carried his teams to a state title. He can't. That's why he's leaving. It's not that he's not a good player. We've seen that on the AAU circuit when he's not forced to play center, when he's able to play the wing position. He's been outstanding. He shut down Mikael Brown, one of the top recruits in the country defensively, and he has improved everything. His shooting, he's been allowed to flourish, and this is the exact reason he made that decision.
Yeah, I mean, and I get, I'm not sitting here saying like it's not, and I wrote, it's probably been 7-8 years ago, I hate this prep school thing, and it's from a selfish standpoint of, being able to see these guys play and cover them and see how they, sort of the legacy they have at their school, and it's honestly that part of it still, I still, from that selfish standpoint, like I hate that, it's Trent Sisley won't be, have a chance to win Mr. Basketball. He won't have his jersey in the gym there at Heritage Hills and all that. But at the same time, that's kind of the nature. I wrote this the other day. That's the nature of where we're at now. That's all of these top 100 kids they're being recruited by the prep schools. I mean, I don't think there's any, prep schools may tell you different. Oh, we're just taking who comes to us. I mean, that's not accurate. I mean, they're getting, and I don't think there's any crime in it either. It's like, hey, why wouldn't you want to go get the top 100 players and see if they'll come to your school if you can? So they have all these opportunities is what I'm saying. And Trent Sisley decided to, make this move that, in his opinion will be better for him. It wasn't something like, hey, we need to jump on something here because, everything's going terrible, and they have a nice, I've been to their house down there. They have a nice place. They're entrenched in Southern Indiana and Heritage Hills school system. And, right across from, Holiday World there, it's, they're definitely, they're from that area, so this is not easy to just up and leave. But at the same time, and Trent, I had a chance to talk to him yesterday, and, he said basically, and there's a story up on IndyStar.com, but he said, hey, this is a chance to play, I'm paraphrasing, but play with players who are like me, play with players who are similar to me, who are going to college and going to play college basketball. And I know Nate Hawkins at Heritage Hills, they were, Trent was doing, they were doing everything they possibly could to, they needed Trent obviously, and they were using him, trying to use him any way they could. He had a great June for them up until, the point where he left. But, he had a great June. He had a great, career there. He leaves as all-time leading scorer for Heritage Hills. And, but obviously he felt like this is something that could help take him to another level. And going to Montverde is, they were undefeated last year and, won the Chipotle High School Nationals. So they have had success and their coach there has had success. And, it's hard to argue too much from a basketball standpoint solely like that this, won't help him. How much it helps you, I think that's debatable. That's the thing too. It's like, I don't think at the end of the day, I think he's going to be, this is not to help his recruiting because, he's going to stay with those 5 schools he's considering. So how much does it help you on the basketball court? I mean, that's the thing that he's counting on that's going to help him get ready for college. And, I think it's a well thought out decision. And I think you could argue, well, wouldn't you get better at Heritage Hills too? And I don't know. It's almost impossible to answer that question, but that's the positives and negatives he had to weigh in making this choice.
Yeah, and a lot of people just said, "Oh well, Kevin Boyle he gets good players, so him winning is not a big deal." I'm like, well, it's not just quite that easy because the most talented teams don't always win. If you don't believe me, go back and ask Jerry Tarkanian and Jim Boeheim on that 1987 teams, both that lost to an Indiana team that. Both Syracuse and UNLV were better than Indiana. How many times did a Bob Knight beat teams that were much better than his teams were from a talent standpoint? But being able to just go relax and know you're going to be able to play your game and learn your position more, and the competition he's going to be playing against it's like the AAU circuit on, constantly. Which again, iron sharpens iron, and you can't get better playing against what he's been doing. I don't think, but
well, and I think too, a point I didn't make there was that I think even for him it may be more about the practices, the day in day out of like going against those guys in practice. Maybe not even so much the games, although that's obviously an important part of it too. But just sort of the getting into. And I know they have great facilities down there. I haven't been there myself personally, but, from everything I've heard, the facilities are outstanding and all that. But, just being able to practice against that level, they had 5 guys ranked in the top 25 in the 2024 class. I mean, you can't tell me that doesn't help you, just understanding what that level's like. And I know there's, there's also part of it too, where, he won't be the main guy, which I think is good for kids to be sort of that alpha guy that everyone's game planning for you every game. And I think part of that's good, to have that target on you. It makes you tougher, I think. So he won't have that as much at Montverde, but I think he's sort of counting on, sort of the day in, day out, push myself harder sort of environment that's going to help prepare him for whichever college he ends up choosing.
Absolutely. And I don't think it's going to have any bearing on his recruiting. He's already selected his visits, and he was supposed to make a decision before the season, I think this fall. And I don't know that timeline has changed. It could possibly change, but I don't expect it to change. I think that when it comes down to it, I think that this is an Indiana-Purdue battle, personally. I would not discount Notre Dame. Micah Shrewsbury is doing a hell of a job there. And Michigan State is also a great draw with Tom Izzo. I don't think Iowa is really in the picture, personally, although that's going to be one of the visits. Ultimately, though, I think this comes down to Indiana and Purdue.
Yeah, I don't think that's a wrong assessment of it. I can't remember who I was talking to the other day, but I think, from a standpoint of like IU and Purdue being in the lead, I don't know that that's inaccurate. I think that's the one that I do want, Michigan State. I don't know how, if they're in the picture, normally they are squarely in the picture. And Notre Dame, I think too, is, and I sort of agree with you on that. He's already been to Iowa for an official visit, but that might be it as far as visits go out to Iowa City. So I don't know, you would think he'd maybe go out there again if he was really, again, I'm reading between the lines, but yeah, I mean, from everything you hear, I know he liked Purdue, liked IU. These schools that have been in there, these 5 have really been in there for a long time. So they all have strong ties to him, strong relationships with the family. So I think we're sort of, things change and I've heard Notre Dame is more part of the picture than maybe we thought before. So I agree with you on that. So, and Michigan State's, like I said, they're always, when they go after Indiana guys, they have pretty good batting percentage, or batting average. So you never count out Tom Izzo on these recruits either. So, but yeah, I mean, that would be obviously a shot to the heart for Purdue and IU fans if he goes to Michigan State. So, but again, I don't know. We'll see how it plays out. I think he's still honestly not like, it's not like he's made a decision and we're just waiting to hear what it is. I don't think that's the case either. So we'll see what happens with the visits. And I do, from talking to him, this recruiting's not going to change. These schools are going to stay the same. And then he's going to make that decision before the season starts. I mean, from everything, as we sit here on July 3rd, nothing has changed from that regard.
Yeah. And, oh gosh, dang it. What was I going to say? Damn it. I forgot. It was a good one. What were you just talking about? Get me back on track.
I was just saying, we're just going through the schools, the list of schools and the timeline on that. So, but yeah,
no one is, I don't think any coach in America has pulled more top level Indiana talent outside of the state than Tom Izzo. I mean, you could just go through the years, man. He's had a ton of those guys, but there have been plenty of guys go to everywhere else: Louisville, Duke, Kentucky, North Carolina, Michigan, Iowa. But Tom Izzo has done as good a job as anyone has. But I think this is going to come down to those 2 schools. They're both doing well, but I don't know what it was. Purdue is in a unique situation. Because of bringing in this really large class, although I expect them to be hit for the first time with unexpected transfers next year via the portal. This year were expected because those guys were being moved along. But as of right now, there's only 1 open spot expected next year. And now they've offered Braylon Mullins. So they're recruiting against these two teammates for one spot.
Yeah, I mean, as it stands now, again, but yeah, I mean, I don't know how all that, it's recruiting. I mean, stuff changes so often that, I know we're looking here at it right now and thinking this is going to be the case, but things change. I mean, it's hard to know exactly how many spots will be available when it comes down to it. But I think we've all heard Purdue has been in a good spot with Sisley for a while, but we also have heard that with Indiana, and like I said, things change often too based on who commits where before that player does. So there could be a spot there that's not there, and then all of a sudden a spot opens up over here. So it's just that part of it too, and that's why you see football commits going like gangbusters through the month of June, because guys have to get locked in. They always tell me like, hey, yeah, I'm not going to decide until the start of the football season. Well, that almost never happens. They have to kind of get locked into their spots, which is totally different from basketball. But to the point, I mean, it does change based on kind of who else commits in that class.
A commitment means less than it ever has right now, without question. Kyle, what's up next for you, brother?
Hopefully wrapping some stuff up this morning, and then trying to take a little time off today and tomorrow and hopefully Friday, but got some football stuff up. Got our top running backs in the area came out today, and we're doing some football stuff sort of weekly before we get to the crush of the start of the high school football season.
Kyle Neddenriep, the hardest working man in the newspaper business at the Indy Star. Appreciate you, my friend.
You bet. Thanks, Jim.
You bet. Thank you. Hey, brought to you by Boost Fundraising. Want to know a team or a group needing a fundraiser? Boost Fundraising raises more money faster and offers the most unique and user-friendly online fundraiser in the nation. Your team receives personalized fundraising pages for each team member, free team-branded promo gifts shipped to each donor. They do it all. Sports teams, marching bands, charity causes, community groups. Go to boostfundraising.com. Be sure to enter the promo code COIL and get a discounted fundraiser. The man, Rick Bozich, joins us next on Indiana Sports Beat Radio right after this.
We'll be right back for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Formerly.
Is that a Fender Stratocaster guitar?
Signed by AC/DC, baby.
Oh.
I've had it for a hell no. But I did try to, I guess it would be called the A string. The A string is broken because I was jamming on it one night. That was a mistake. That was a mistake. I've got to replace that. But AC/DC was in concert in Louisville in like 2010, or they were supposed to be in like the fall of 2010, October, but I think they ended up getting moved to like February, that following February. But I ended up getting that at a auction for a cancer auction that they had. And I had the daggone letter of authenticity and everything, and I accidentally deleted it. So, but it's got the guys, Phil Rudd, their drummer, and David Johnson, and the two brothers, Malcolm and Angus. So pretty cool. I like it. I've had it for a long time. I just figured, hey, why not stick that up in the
Are they still around? They still perform?
David, their lead singer, developed this hearing issue, and remember Axl Rose filled in for him for a long time, and I don't know that they're out and about right now. They're on their way out, but it was a hell of a concert, I'll tell you that. Glad I got to see it. Let's see, what's the newest?
Just written about the biggest stories of the year and the most overlooked stories of the year. And
is that the halftime?
Yeah, halftime reports. I got one to go. What are the biggest stories to look for over the rest of the year?
Oh.
What's Signetti's famous quote? I win, Google me.
Yes, I win, yep. Google me.
That's what he says?
Well, he just said it the one time.
Okay.
He also said, And Purdue sucks, and so does Michigan and Ohio State.
Yeah. Didn't he also say I'd never had a losing season? I don't intend to start now.
Yep. And then he also pointed out that if you look at Indiana last year, they were like 0-6 in one-score games, and JMU was like 6-0 in one-score games.
Oh, he has said that?
0.9% APR financing for 36 months on a 2023 Honda Ridgeline. Go to AndyMooreHonda.com and get more to your door.
This segment is brought to you by Bubba's 33 in Clarksville and Evansville. Pizza, burgers, beer. Welcome back to Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio on this Wednesday. We've made it to the halfway point, brought to you by our friends Bubba's 33 down in Clarksville, Indiana. For those of you down in the southern Indiana area or passing through right off of I-65 at Veterans Parkway. Pizza, burgers, beer, incredible place to catch a game, take the family. Rick Bozich from WDRB.com joins us now. And Rick, we are at the halfway point of the year, which kind of puts us in I don't want to say a nowhere land, because there's still a ton going on. Next week we have the Adidas 3SSB tournament championship starting. The Peach Jam will be going on. After that, we've got the Brickyard coming to Indianapolis. The TBT is really blossomed in this area now with Louisville, Kentucky, Indiana, Purdue, Butler, all having teams in this thing, which and the TBT's been around for a minute. It's just taken a while to get this going. And now this could be outstanding. Earlier in the week, Kyle Guy was on with us, and he owns one of the TBT teams, which it's called Fail Harder. They open up at Hinkle against Butler. So there's another local team really of sorts. So, and I asked him, I said, man, I think the TBT championship should be in Indy. It's just a perfect place for it. And he said he's had those conversations with the people he's talked to there. Can you imagine the TBT championship in, say, Hinkle Fieldhouse would be, I think, awesome.
Yeah, I agree. The problem will be that a lot of these towns that jumped on board before the local area did will probably be upset that for being moved out of position. But yeah, I mean, it got its start. I think the early years, like a lot of the games were in Dayton and Columbus, Ohio. I remember that for some reason. And then it's been in Philadelphia the last couple of years for the finals. Omaha has been involved for a while. Wichita's been probably the strongest spot. They have the biggest crowds on record. So it's the challenge is going to be set forward this year to.
What kind of crowds are they getting?
I think the record is like 9,000 or 10,000. I think
that's a pretty good outing.
Yeah, no, it is. Louisville, I think their highest crowd last year was between 6,000 and 7,000.
Now, does Louisville and Lexington, they both have a site, correct?
Correct. And if Louisville wins 3 games and Kentucky wins 3 games, they play each other in the quarterfinals or Elite 8. I'm not sure if the game's in Lexington or Louisville.
Boy.
Yeah.
Renewing old rivalries.
Yeah.
Same
Kentucky added another player yesterday. They added Aaron Harrison, one of the twins, the one who made all those big clutch 3-point shots for that team when they went to I think it was the 2014 team when they went to the Final Four.
This is going to be really Indiana's team they've got a pretty good squad put together. Purdue announced coaches yesterday, Raphael Davis, who is the BTN announcer. So these guys are going to be seriously competing. You can, even if you put the rivalry stuff aside, it's $1 million winner take all, man. There is no second place.
Exactly right. And they can each make money. I think you get extra money if you make the game-winning shot or something like that. Or if, I don't remember if you have to. If you wear, there's a certain brand of shoes that's aligned with it. And the way it was last year, if you had their shoes on and you're the one who made the game-winning shot, because every game has a game-winning shot with the way they end these games. It's called the Elam ending, where whatever the score is with about 4 minutes to go, at that point, whoever gets, let's say you're beating me 50-48 with 4 minutes to go. At that point, the mark score is 50, so whoever gets to 58 wins. So if I come back and beat you, I get to 58 before you do, I win. But if you get to 58 first, you win, which means every game does have a game-winning shot, which adds pressure. It's interesting. Last year, you can actually see teams tighten up knowing if I get this basket, we win.
It's a great, I think it's an outstanding idea. And the Elam ending, just a great twist, because other than that, you're just watching another basketball tournament with the other parts of it that will still be there. But the Elam ending puts a twist on it.
And it eliminates fouling. It's not there's no advantage to fouling late in the game to drag the game out to see if the other team going to miss some free throws.
Brian is saying Puma is the merch people, but boy, Puma, what do we is this a track meet or I didn't know they made basketball shoes.
A couple of the teams that Louisville played against, their guys did it. I saw a guy actually swap his shoes out with 4 minutes to go. But I remember when Louisville's team, everybody expected Russ Smith to always be the guy to make the winning shot, and he didn't swap his shoes out.
Well, I just think it's going to be a blast. You've got all these area teams that could end up playing each other. Indiana, Purdue, Butler, Louisville, and Kentucky. That is just, I think it's great. I think it's great for the schools. It gives fans more interaction. And I'm really curious to see what the attendance is going to be like at Hinkle. First of all, you're at an iconic arena for this. That's amazing. And a lot of these guys have never played in Hinkle.
Right.
I've talked to some of the guys that have come on with us, Devontae Green and a few of the others. They've never played in Hinkle, which it's just a cool icon, one of the most iconic basketball arenas that's still out there.
Yes, it is. I remember I started going there for the high school state finals back when it was played there. I've been there for Butler games. It's one of my favorite venues in the country. They did a great job when they remodeled it to keep a lot of the history, but modernizing it. I know Patino took a team up there once and played. So yeah, I enjoy going to games in Hinkle. And I think IU and Purdue have to win once and then they play each other in the second game, correct?
I believe you are correct. And
here, I mean, the first game here is going to be big. It's on Saturday afternoon, July the 20th at 1:00, but Louisville's playing Bellarmine. And it's the Bellarmine dudes who were around, 10 years ago when they won the Division II national championship. Braden Hobbs, the kid from New Albany, Jeremy Kendall, the kid from Jeffersonville. I guarantee you they've been playing pickup most of the summer, and they're going to take it very seriously because for them to win the game against the Louisville team that's going to have Montrezl Harrell and Chris Jones and Russ Smith and Peyton Siva and Luke Hancock and Shane Bohannon and these dudes, that's some big trash talking points. So that should be a fun game.
A lot of great names in all of these teams. I mean, it doesn't matter if you're talking about Indiana, you got Jordan Hulls, Troy Williams, Yogi Ferrell, guys like that. I don't know. Juwan Morgan. Purdue has a great team. Butler has recognizable names, and these guys will take. It'll be less about the rivalry, and it's going to be more about the money and winning. Just winning. The drive is to just simply win, but there is a big old carrot hanging at the end of this stick.
Yeah. One thing you'll find out though is which guys are really in shape. It's not like definitely saw some guys last year there were several guys who were way out of shape and didn't play much. And then there were some other guys that were in decent shape, but after they went hard for 2 or 3 minutes, they had to go to the bench. And then you had a couple, a significant number of guys who probably played in Europe last year and have to stay in shape because they want to go back for another year. So that's a big That's a big factor in this thing, which guys are actually in shape. Because to think, if you just decided 2 weeks ago to play and you hadn't been playing for a while, you're not going to be able to keep up with the best competition. I don't care how talented you are.
Yeah, I'm sure Jordan Hulls is still in shape, but he's 2 years removed from playing, but he was at the top of his game at that time. He was coming off of an MVP type season, and so he stepped right off of the court into this role. I'm sure he stays in relatively good shape, but it's not like running up and down the court every night. So there is something to that.
Or getting knocked around when you drive in the lane, or guarding somebody, staying in front of your man, or getting back on defense on 3 or 4 straight plays. That sprinting hard there's a difference between being in pretty good shape and being in game shape.
Absolutely. And Noah Vonleh, I was curious. I thought Indiana may pick Noah Vonleh up because he's been in the news lately. It appears that he's, according to him, getting basically screwed over by his foreign team who
not getting paid, right? And he left the country and they kicked him out of his hotel room and made him sleep in the lobby.
Not only not being paid, they were like coming into his room and doing all kinds of things. The allegations are it was kind of wild. But that's the kind of stuff that you have to worry about when you're in a foreign country. You don't know the power that they have. And it's like, and I'm like, these are allegations and I don't know. I'm not doubting, but I don't know. But it's damn. This is a guy who was just in the NBA.
Right. Yeah, that's a common thing. I've talked to Kentucky and Louisville players in the past through the years of if you're not in the very top European leagues that are very proven and established and you are on a team and go over there and that team isn't winning, what they'll frequently do is start stiffing you on your paycheck. And then they're basically telling you they want you to hit the road. And you got to fight them to get money. It's why you have to be real sure you go to a good place and have an agent you can trust that you can get your money, because I know of guys that have gotten burned and not been paid for the last month they were there. They pick up and leave, and that's what the teams want you to do, because then you void your contract and you never do get the money, and all they're doing is trying to drive you out so they can bring a different player in.
He's going to stiff me. And I'm like, how about something, for the effort?
Yeah, it's a challenging. You're in a world where you can't speak the language, you don't know the culture, you don't know the lawyers, and over there they only play like once or twice a week. There's a lot of downtime. That's a challenge for a lot of those guys.
You missed the Caddyshack reference.
I'm sorry.
Gunga Galunga.
I'm not a movie buff.
Hey, we've got Rick Bozich joining us from WDRB.com and much more coming up. When we come back, we're going to talk about the new Big Ten, the new SEC, the new ACC, and all that goes with it. Brought to you by Reynolds Family Dentistry in Sellersburg. Go see our friend Dr. J and keep up with that championship smile. Back with more Rick Bozich on Indiana Sports Beat Radio right after this.
We'll be right back for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
How's your 4th of July looking?
I'm probably just going to take it easy. Might watch some baseball.
Who are you going to watch? Certainly not the White Sox.
Of course I am.
I love that. Hey, I love that about you, though. How about Eli De La Cruz? I talked about him early in the show. Still doing Eli Cruz things. Goes to Yankee Stadium for the first time and goes Babe Ruth, knocking a 2-run home run that would ultimately be the winning run for the Reds over the Yankees.
They won one game and then they lost last night. Was that right?
They won 5-4, and was that the night before last?
I think so.
I think it was. Yeah, I think it was the night before last when he hit that home run.
He's a heck of a player. I don't understand why the Reds haven't been better this year, but I can't watch their games.
They were supposed to be challenging for the divisional lead, and they're in freaking basement, man.
The Reds are the hardest team for me to follow because although I have the baseball package and can watch theoretically any game, I can't watch any Reds games because they're on Bally Sports or whatever. And Bally Sports isn't part of the YouTube TV package.
Bally's been blocked by virtually everybody on everything anyway.
Right. So I can't watch the Reds other than when they're on national TV.
So Caleb is saying it was last night that he hit the home run.
Okay.
So they won 5-4 in the game that he hit the 2-run homer. That put him up 5-0, but they ended up holding on for a 5-4 win.
Yeah.
Let's see.
Actually,
What do you expect Louisville to be like this year in football?
I think they'll be good. I'm not sure they'll be 10-2 good like they were last year, because last year, a lot of things went their way. They won a lot of close games. The schedule was favorable, but I think they'll win 8 or 9.
I think it was actually, and I'll bring this up, I think now it was very smart of Indiana to buy out that Louisville game. I know that it would have been a good challenge, and I think it would have been a game they could have won, but I think it was, now looking at the schedule, man, was it a smart move.
All right, here we go, guys.
Steak or a grouper filet and enjoy it cooked to perfection in Chop Shop Steakhouse. Chop Shop Market and Table, a part of the Wild Food Group, is your butcher, baker, and fish house, no matter where you live.
This segment is brought to you by the Ugly Grouper. Welcome back to Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio on this Wednesday. Thank you so much for joining us. Brought to you by the Ugly Grouper down on Anna Maria Island, Florida. Beautiful Anna Maria Island, Florida, just west of Sarasota. For those of you that, if you're there already in the area, some more Florida listeners, or heading down there on vacation from Indiana. I know we had somebody from Orleans go down there on vacation last year. But make sure you stop in the Ugly Grouper. They have incredible food, locally sourced seafood, your favorite cocktails and craft beers, and live music every night. So stop by. Just go to theuglygrouper.com for more information. Rick Bozich from WDRB.com with us now. And Rick, talking some college football as we get close. We're only 3 weeks away from Big Ten football media days. And the Big Ten, the SEC, the ACC, all looking different this year. We'll start with the Big Ten, adding UCLA, USC, Washington, and Oregon. Indiana playing two of those teams, with Washington coming to Bloomington in October and Indiana traveling earlier to Los Angeles in the Rose Bowl to take on the Bruins, this third game of the season. And I've got the schedule poster up in front of me, Rick, and so I look at it every day, and without wanting to sound like a homer, because I hate that, there is a path for Indiana to a 6-0 start to the season. As crazy as that sounds, and I see the linchpin game of that being that road game at UCLA, the third game in, but that's a winnable game. New team, new coach, new everything. It wasn't exactly going great out there. And our friend Fred Cowgill posted something yesterday that I reposted about the revenue generating schools, the top 50. 31 of the top 50 are from the Big Ten and the SEC.
Wow.
UCLA was 49th in that, behind everybody in either of those two conferences, far behind. As a matter of fact, I think they had like 104 million, and number one is Ohio State at 297 million. You want to talk about a seismic difference? Holy crap. Indiana was 27th. They made 40 something more $1 million than UCLA. So it just gives you an understanding. But I see a path for 6-0. And then that follows two home games for Indiana that would be winnable games with Nebraska and Washington. So it could be a crazy season for Indiana. off air, I just said that I think it was the smartest thing that they bought out of that Louisville game for this year, because it gives them the opportunity that they have here with 8 home games in Kurt Signetti's first year, and an opportunity to really turn that around. I mean, he could potentially be the Big Ten Coach of the Year if they're able to take that 1-8 Big Ten season last year and turn that into something very, very different.
Yeah, I mean, it does look promising. I try and always remember, though, that I know it's a new roster, it's a new coaching staff, but this is also a program that needed 4 overtimes to beat Akron last year. So I try not to get too carried away. But the first game's against FIU. FIU lost their last 4 games last year and gave up 40 points in all 4 of them. So I don't know how good they're going to be. The next game's Western Illinois. That's the most guaranteed win on the schedule. And then UCLA is the critical game. They also have a new coach. And if other than the distance, the travel logistics, that's one of the better places to play on the road. They don't come close to filling the Rose Bowl. It's not an intimidating atmosphere at all. I think they've had games with fans, like in the 30,000. So if you're good and go out there, you can steal that win. And then at that point, you have people's attention. You come home and play Charlotte, should have a good crowd, get to 4-0. Then you got Maryland, which lost its quarterback, but they have had Indiana's number the last few years. So that would be a more difficult game. And then at Northwestern, and they're playing that one right in a soccer field or something, not on Northwestern's campus. That's weird.
Correct.
So, yeah, I mean, I'd say 6-0 is unlikely just because you're going to have a game when you don't perform, you make turnovers or whatever. 5-1, I'd say, is probably the best case scenario, and you better.
But
you
even
better
at 5-1, think of that.
Yeah, better win at least 4, because then you got to pick up 2 the rest of the way to get to a bowl game, and that was the whole purpose of getting rid of the Louisville game, to make it so you can get to 6 wins, so you can become a bowl team and kind of change the narrative around your program. That's like one of the reasons they did it. And Michigan State's a winnable game, Purdue's a winnable game. Washington at IU could be a winnable game. They lost a ton of players and have a new coach. Nebraska's probably a winnable game. The only ones that aren't are Ohio State and Michigan, and they play them back to back.
But Michigan also, even though it's Michigan, a lot of changes there. Changes in coaching staff. But
there are.
Virtually all of their offense is gone. So they have a lot of changes to make as well. And I know it's Michigan, and so I'm not suggesting otherwise. But they too went through a lot of changes. As a matter of fact, there is only one team on Indiana's conference schedule that does not have either a new coach or a second-year coach.
And that's Ohio State?
That's Ohio State.
Wow. That's crazy.
Every other
Loxley's been around for a while.
Oh, my bad. Yes, I skipped Maryland. My fault. Too.
Okay. That's an edge. I mean, and the schedules, it's an advantage they're not playing Ohio State or Iowa in the first game of the year. It's an advantage they're playing the first 2 games at home with a new coach. I mean, a lot of things are in motion for them to have a positive start to this season. They just have to take advantage of it. And I know there's a lot of excitement. There's a lot of hype because Signetti's been really good. The one thing he really has done is give confidence to people that he knows what he's doing, that he has a plan, that he's executing the plan, that he's brought guys with him from James Madison who believe in the plan. And I think people they believe him. They want to believe him. Now he's, the comments like you and I were talking about of Google me, I win. That gives people, it's different than LEO. I mean, it's a different messaging system, and he just comes across as a no nonsense guy of things are going to be organized. We're going to have a plan. We know what we're doing, and that is important.
Yeah. I've said that Indiana football has gone from LEO to GFY, and as far as attitude, which which there needed to be some of that, I think. That was cool for a while, but it only goes so far. You have to have a different mindset. But 5 conference games, 5 of the 9 are against teams with a new coach. 3 of the remaining 4 have a second-year coach. So that's pretty mind-boggling, to be honest with you. And not only that, then it just came out. Pro Football Focus, if you're a Twitter follower or X follower rather, Pro Football Focus does an incredible job of stats and putting out some incredible stats. Of the top 10, according to Pro Football Focus, of the top 10 defensive transfers, Indiana landed 3. No one else had 2. No one else had more than 1. And I'm talking Auburn, Miami, whoever you want to talk about. Indiana had 3 guys in their top 10. And that's even harder to do because it's Indiana. So it makes it more difficult for those types of publications to list Indiana because there's a bias, an understandable bias. But to see that's game changing.
Yeah, no, that's impressive because usually when players, more so high school players, commit to Indiana, I don't think it helps their recruiting ranking. I think the recruiting rankings are definitely biased towards the bigger name schools to sort of reinforce the narrative that they're getting the better players. I mean, Cignetti, from all outside and anecdotal evidence, is the best coaching hire Indiana's made since Terry Hepner, maybe since Bill Mallory. He's more qualified than Bill Lynch was, right?
Yes.
Yeah, had more coaching experience and more level-headed than Kevin Wilson, who was a great offensive coach, not much on defense, and he's a more talented coach than Tom Allen. So they got the right guy. I mean, they got a guy who has endured Indiana-like conditions at other programs and won with them. They got a guy with a chip on his shoulder who understands what he's getting into. And they got a guy who's 62 years old and knows that this is his shot at the big time, and he can come in here and win. He'll create quite a legacy, and we'll see if he can get it done. I mean, I like everything I've seen and heard from him so far. We just have to see how it goes.
Yeah, they're doing well on the recruiting circuit. They did recently lose, though, an Indianapolis kid to Louisville, the Burris kid.
Right.
But I think that's something that will be an ongoing battle. I don't know that battle's done yet, to be honest with you, because commitments don't really mean much anymore. Juju Lewis is a perfect example of that, committed to USC, but he's taken all of these visits, and I'm not sure he ends up at USC.
Yeah, I mean, didn't they just flip a receiver from Lawrence North who was going to Illinois last week, and they've lost a couple? I know, I kind of got the indication one guy committed and then he took more visits, and Indiana pretty much said, well, if you're going to do that, we don't want you anymore. And they got somebody else. So good for Cignetti for doing it that way. Yeah, he's excuse me. He's got a lot of positives going in his direction. And I'll be very interested to see how it looks when they play. I'm fairly sure that Curtis Rourke's going to be the quarterback, but
I'm the same way.
Didn't Trace Jackson, David Taven's little brother, look good in the spring game?
He did. I just think it's going to come down to experience,
right?
Because he did look good under this staff, but that has to make fans feel good, though, knowing that your backup is solid. That's something Indiana has fought, but depth in all positions. They're deep at the running back room, deep at quarterback. They've got a better offensive line. And we just talked about the defense. So they're shoring up everything, which is a lot of times you see these teams that end up scoring 40 points a game, but they give up 45 points a game. That's the Kevin Wilson era. You've just got to have that balance. And I think Indiana is really trying to get there quickly.
Yeah, there's no doubt that they are. And, usually we've seen that Indiana, when was the last time they had a guy be the quarterback through the entire season? It's been a long time, right?
Yes, mainly because usually they can't protect him and he has to run for his life the whole time.
Right.
In
I
your
mean, last
latest
year, how
piece,
many- It was Sorsby and
Taven Jackson.
Taven Jackson, and then somebody else got to play some too last year, right? I think weren't there like 3 guys?
Is that the guy that transferred out? It's been so. It seems like it's so long ago. You can hardly
I thought
remember.
there was another guy that got to play a little bit. Who knows? And this year it's going to be Rourke and Jackson and maybe the kid Sherry, who's the freshman. I don't know if they'll redshirt him or not, but that was a guy he flipped right off the bat when he came in.
And then they've also got Alberto Mendoza coming in from Miami.
That's right.
Or from Florida.
They do.
So, but he's coming in late. So I don't expect much from him this year. Your latest piece out talks about it being basically the halftime of the year. Lots of drama, realignment drama. I mentioned the ACC, the Big Ten, and of course the SEC. The SEC adding Texas and Oklahoma. The ACC, adding. Who is it? Stanford? Who all came into
Stanford, California, and SMU.
Yeah,
and Louisville gets SMU at home and at Stanford in football. So
the
Kentucky
ACC
it affects Kentucky. Kentucky has to play at Texas the week before they play Louisville in the rivalry game. So Texas is predicted to be a top 5 team preseason.
That's not going to be fun. That's going to be
Kentucky's schedule is a lot harder this year. They usually open up with 3 home games, all winnable against non-conference teams. Well, this year they got Southern Miss the first game. That's harder than their usual opener. Then they got South Carolina. Then they got Georgia the third game of the year. So they're not going to get out of the blocks fast the way they normally do.
Yeah, fortunately for Indiana, the Big Ten did them a little favor this year. They did not open them against Ohio State or on the road at Iowa,
right?
Which we had seen like 5 out of 7 years, which you're crushing your own conference when you do that kind of stuff. But many changes in college football this year. The SEC or the ACC is still, I hate to say it, but they still seem weak in football. Their bell cow Clemson has just not been Clemson.
Yeah, they've slipped. Florida State moved forward last year, and I think they obviously would have been in the playoffs if Jordan Travis hadn't gotten injured. And they're still angry about that. And the biggest problem the ACC has is their 2 best football teams want out of the league. They started out being somewhat private about it, and they've got increasingly more public about it as it goes along. And I think they're determined to get out, and they will get out at some point, and then we'll see what happens if they get out, whether Virginia and North Carolina follow them by getting out to go into either the Big Ten or the SEC. I could see that happening. And then
who's more likely, do you think, to go where? Which makes more sense?
Because of North Carolina and Virginia's academic profiles, I think they're more likely to go to the Big Ten. That's what I believe. And I think eventually Louisville will end up in the Big 12, which will be a good spot for them because it's a really good basketball league, and Louisville's basketball program will rebound to be good again. And in football, you'll have rivalry games with Cincinnati and West Virginia, which are teams they have a history with going back for a number of years. And they're at places that Louisville fans have definitely driven to and followed their team at in the past. And that's the biggest problem for Louisville in the ACC is, the road trips are all a long way for driving. I mean, the closest one is, probably Clemson and Virginia Tech, 5 or 6 hours.
Does the ACC football eventually drown?
Yeah, I mean, they're falling behind. I mean, their commissioner, John Swofford, didn't do a good job when he established the ACC network and their revenue that the league gets compared to what the Big Ten and the SEC gets is.
Well, he wrote it out for was it like a 10-year deal?
Yeah, it's into the 2036 or something.
I mean, who does that?
That's
1 minute.
I don't understand the logic behind that, but it's been an anvil that they've carried around, and it's going to lead to the disintegration of the league. And plus, the league is just I know it's becoming more this way everywhere, but like Boston College and then Syracuse and then, Miami, it's just not a very it used to be such a geographically sound league, and now it's just bizarro world.
That it is, sir. Rick Bozich from WDRB.com. And I cannot thank you enough for being with us. Make sure you guys tune in tomorrow. Shannon Griffith joins us. We'll talk some football. Bob Kravitz and special guest Gabe Cupps joining us here on the program. We'll catch up with Gabe and see how his summer is going. Rick, I hope you have a very, very happy 4th of July.
You too. All right. Enjoy the grill.
You got the snakes and sparklers. Get the good stuff. Joe Dirt, baby. Joe Dirt.
We get wild and crazy. All right. Thanks, Jim.
Keep Ruby protected.
Happy 4th. Bye-bye.
Happy 4th of July. Happy 4th of July to everybody as well. We're going to be here tomorrow, though. Don't get your panties in a bunch. We'll be back. Shannon Griffith, like I said, Bob Kravitz, Gabe Cupps on tomorrow. Big thanks to Dylan Sinn, as well as Kyle Neddenriep and Rick Bozich, of course, for joining us today. Most importantly, thanks to each and every one of you. Without you, we have no reason to be here. Don't forget, we're brought to you by the Fresh Fork, who has ensured great food to IU athletes. Get yours. The Fresh Fork is chef-curated, ready-made meals delivered right to you. Just go to the freshforkonline.com. Use promo code radio20. Get $20 off your first order. That's going to wrap it up. Thanks to John for keeping us between the white lines. Until tomorrow, I'm Jim Coyle. I will see you on the radio.
Thanks for listening to Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube page for more clips and team coverage of Indiana basketball, football, and more. You can also find full episodes and tons of other content on thehoosier.com. We'll see you next time for another edition of Indiana Sports Beat Radio.